What's up, motivators? Taren here. Today's podcast guest is Milo James, who is best known as @Runderestimated on Instagram. Milo started taking over my suggested feed when I started noticing his posts that were spreading such a good vibe in the running community. Milo has just taken up running in the last several years, starting with a 6-hour marathon, but he's set the lofty goal of qualifying for the Boston Marathon. Now, I think why I really connected with Milo's content is because even though this is a goal that he admits he's not sure if he's ever going to be able to do, and it's very lofty and maybe out of his reach, he's enjoying the process of trying to accomplish that goal and having a lot of fun doing it, taking the pressure off of that self-worth being all about reaching that goal, more about the journey of trying to reach that goal and the lessons on that journey being the exciting part and the fun part. So I think that's why I resonated with Milo's content and why I think you'd love it. Milo is a mōTTIV mover, so he's an ambassador for our brand, and we're going to be creating a lot of content together over the coming years. So definitely go and follow Milo @Runderestimated on TikTok, on Instagram, all of the socials out there. I want to thank Milo for being an excellent representative of endurance sports. We are honored to have him here, and I hope everyone enjoys this interview.
My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company mōTTIV offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
So, Milo James here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being one of the motivators, especially over the last couple of weeks. If people saw my announcement video and read any of the comments, they know that what we're doing with the direction of where we're going with our brand, with my content, that it's a big change from where we grew. We grew because it was largely my story about how I became an endurance athlete in YouTube's and podcast videos, or YouTube videos and podcasts. And now we're trying to highlight all different diverse backgrounds and demographics and socioeconomic statuses to help give people an easier way to find role models. I talked about that, really just talking largely about how we want to give a voice to underrepresented people. Not that I want to silence everyone, but it became really, really tense right away. And like very quickly, you looked at the comments, messaged me, we talked a little bit, and you sort of brought to light how what the negativity was that was coming at us wasn't really surprising to you, which was sad. But anyway, I just want to thank you for doing that publicly. Let's just back it up and say, where were you? What's sort of the background of your life before you got into endurance sports? Like, what were you doing that drew you to the sport? Because there's always a good story that people have.
Yeah, there is. So I had just come off of more or less a year and a half of traveling. So I'd been in Australia. My home country is the United Kingdom. I'd been in Australia. I traveled around Asia, partied a hell of a lot, not had a good routine of any kind. And I'd arrived in New Zealand, ready to get a job, kind of ready to get back into a 9-to-5 routine. And once I'd done that for about 3 months, I think, I wouldn't say I felt lost, but I would definitely say I needed something, kind of that motivation again, because I didn't want to travel anymore. I'd done that. I was happy with what I'd done, but I needed a new focus. And the story goes that there was actually like a billboard outside of the apartment where I lived that said, "Run the city." That was the Auckland Marathon. And it spoke to me on a spiritual level, if there is such a thing. And I signed up for the marathon, not knowing how far a marathon was and not really knowing anything about running. But that's where the challenge started.
How did that first marathon go? Not knowing anything about running or even how far it went. Did they just keep going, like keep running? And you're like, oh my God, this is long.
Yeah, So when I'd signed up, obviously I had this really good intention that I was going to spend the winter months training, and being in a new city, like I said, meeting new people, that quickly went out the window, and I was soon going for drinks after work, partying every weekend. And up until the actual day before the race, I wasn't going to do it because I'd not trained. And once I got the email through about picking up the race pack, which I'd never done before, I was like, oh, this sounds cool. Like, I'll go down and pick up the bib and you get like a free hat. This sounds like really interesting. And I got there, and just being at an expo for the first time and seeing, almost feeling like that energy of these people that had trained for months, these people that were seasoned professionals, people that were just ready and excited to take on this challenge the next day. I got home and I was like, I need to do this tomorrow. Like, I need to just do it. So I got up 5 o'clock in the morning, made my way there, and you asked me how it was. It was the best and worst day of my life. The best day because it taught me so much about myself and how resilient you can be. But obviously the worst day because I wasn't trained. It was further than I thought it was going to be. There was just no preparation. There was no nutrition. There was nothing. So best and worst and biggest learning curve I think probably I've ever had. So
What was
yes,
your
that's how
what
the
was your
first one
finish
went.
time? Not that this is about times, but I'm just curious about
No,
what
no.
somebody coming off the couch would do if they're fit,
Yeah,
fit
so
and young. Come off the couch, go do a marathon, see what happens.
I will say that prior to this, I was smoking every weekend as well. So I don't smoke anymore, but I was kind of someone who, when I drink, I smoke at the same time. So I wouldn't say my lungs were in the best shape. But I finished in 6 hours and 4 minutes. And I think the course cut off was 6.5 hours. So I was definitely one of the last. And I think the only people behind me were literally in their 80s. So but I don't see it as a bad thing. I'm not embarrassed about that at all because, like I said, it taught me so much, and everybody has to start somewhere. So
That was
there's
your
no
step
shame.
one. What was missing in your life before
Absolutely.
then? I find that there's always something that is unfulfilled with people that get addicted to this sport, that instantly it just like the
Yeah.
square peg goes into the square hole and you're like, oh, this is what I needed in my life.
Yeah, I think for me, it was definitely focus was missing. I had quite a high stress job. So I was a restaurant manager back in the UK, and I was only like 22 years old, 23, with like 40 staff reporting to me. So every day was very, very focused. And then I needed a break because it was too much for my puny little brain to handle. So I took this break by going traveling, which was great. But then after almost 2 years of traveling, there wasn't a focus. I wasn't focused on anything in the future because it had always been, where's the next country I'm visiting? Where's the next place I'm staying? That was my focus for so long. And then once you stop that, I could barely think past the next day because it was just, okay, I'm going to work. There was no long term goal.
And did racing give it to you right away or did it have to develop?
So the first marathon clearly didn't because obviously I didn't train for it. But so after I'd finished that marathon, I promised myself I'd go back the next year and train, even if it was to not run any faster. I just wanted to prove to myself that I could actually do it without hurting myself, basically, because I was in pretty bad shape afterwards. And I think that's when the long term started coming in when I was training for it the second time around, which technically was my first running marathon. So I did my first marathon, but then I actually did the marathon that I trained for. So
So what did it become for you? Like it is fulfilling, it is health,
yeah,
but what is running to you? Is it just strictly fun? Is it
so
about health? Is it about fulfillment? Is it about community? What does it do for you?
I think I would definitely say when I was training for the first marathon the first time around, it was purely a challenge and like something I wanted to prove to myself. It wasn't about anybody else. It was about me kind of not, I don't want to say correcting the mistake I made, but just kind of really proving to myself that there was more that I could do. Whether it was to feel better, whether it was to go faster, there was just more I could have done. And it wasn't, there was no plans after that marathon to keep running. But once I did that and I saw the difference that, I don't know, like 7 months of training can make, and the connections I made along the way, because that was when I started the Instagram documenting my training, and people from all over the world were saying, oh, like, good luck. And it became this community that was like driving me towards something, because you get used to fighting for things on your own and setting your own goals. But when you have people you don't even know just wanting the best for you, it just became a lifestyle. And which we always say it shouldn't become, but like a personality trait as well. Like, never let your sport become a personality trait, but it kind of does. So yeah, it just became part of my life rather than something I was doing to hit
So
a
how did
goal.
it change your life? Was it mostly mental or emotional, or just added some structure
I
and focus?
think, no, I would say on so many different levels at so many different times. There's really pivotal points that I think about. I think, without going into too much detail, someone who has struggled and does struggle with mental health, it can be difficult to allow yourself to see what you might be capable of. And not only that, but also to actually like dream that you may be capable of something more than what you are. So I think the challenges that I faced, that instead of just, I don't know, the first time I went for a long run, maybe I didn't run as far as I wanted to. Instead of just going, okay, I can't do that, the next week I'd put on my shoes and try again. And again, maybe I wouldn't get the distance I wanted, but over time, without realizing it, I was building, I don't know if it was confidence, but it was definitely like some sort of mental resilience and just some sort of like fortitude within myself, that even if I didn't believe that I could, I was doing it. I was out there doing it without being able to say, yes, I'm going to go out and smash these goals. And something in my brain was almost like, I don't know if it was rewiring, but it was definitely building blocks that you don't notice day to day. But when you look back at what happened in the last 7 months, you're like, wow, like, I've really come a long way without these huge, you know what I mean? I've not been on a podium. I've not been in first place. No one's really seen the training that I've done, but to look back, I've come so far.
I can relate to that. It didn't feel at the time when I was getting into it like I was building confidence, but a couple of the other motivators just use the post, "You can do hard things," and
Yeah.
it's not like I would sit there as a young 20 something lacking confidence. Like, I have a streak of arrogance and overconfidence to me, but I would still doubt myself with the really big things. Like, I knew I wanted to create a business at some point in my life, but I was like, ooh, business is risky. Ooh, I don't know. I
Yeah.
owe creating this business entirely to endurance sports, obviously, because it's an endurance sports business. But I wouldn't have had the confidence to leave a job in finance if I hadn't gone through training plans where I've been like, okay, just a little bit every day gets you to where you want to go. And it might not be in 3 months, but it'll just keep getting you closer and closer to where you want to go. And even now I have to kind of remind myself of that like, it's not about creating a marketing plan or a training plan or whatever it is that changes things the very next day. It's just tiny little baby steps along the way, and understanding that process turns into very good things.
100%. And I think that's just, you hit the nail on the head. It's just so important that those steps continue, because as you said, you don't notice it day to day. And then if you actually take a minute to even look at like where you were last week, the change at times can be like mind blowing. So
Yeah. So what is your goal now? I know what the goal is, but let's let people in on it.
yeah. My goal, which again I get a bit, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but talking about it, because it scares
Those are
me,
the
I
best
guess,
goals,
and
though.
that's why. But I know, but I think I really struggle with failure. It's something I've always struggled with. When I used to go to the gym a very long time ago, my personal trainer always used to say to me, like, when we do weights, he'd be like, okay, we're going to put another 20 on. I'd be like, let's do another 10. And he's like, you need to learn how to fail or you're never going to extend your max. So I do have an issue with that. But the goal is to qualify for the Boston Marathon at some point in this lifetime, preferably, would be good.
How long has it been since
We've got a
the
long way to
first
go.
running marathon you did?
The first running marathon was October 2019. And then I ran the LA Marathon in March 2020. That's it. So obviously, because of the pandemic, I've not run another marathon since. And that PR at LA was 3:35. And Boston is definitely going to be a sub 3 for my age group. How far that sub 3 is going to be depends on the year. And I'm not there yet. I know I'm not there. And it's not a short-term goal, but it's something that hopefully I can do in the future in this age group that I'm currently in. I don't want to wait until the next age group because I feel like that's a cop out to me. I really want to go for it whilst it's the fastest qualifying time.
It's so hard to qualify for these Bostons and Konas of the world because so many people are trying to do it now. It's a big goal and it's super exciting. That you probably don't know this, but I right before the pandemic happened, I turned down a spot to half Ironman World Championships because it didn't scare me anymore. Like I created a year around qualifying for the half Ironman World Championships, got it, and then turned down the spot because like my heart in the week leading up to the race was just like, half Ironmans don't really scare me anymore. Trying to qualify for Kona scares me because I don't know if I have the stuff to be able to do it. And that felt really exciting.
So exactly. And I think people have said to me, oh, if you want to run Boston, why don't you do it for charity or why don't you? And I'm like, because it's not, obviously I want to run the course at some point. That would be amazing. But it's the goal of maybe not being able to qualify, even if I can't run the course, but actually the challenge is more than the reward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's the,
so that's right.
I've been talking about this a lot over the last couple of weeks, that the dopamine reward system in our brain really likes those like just slightly out of reach goals. The thing that is totally within our reach is not exciting because we're like, oh yeah, I can do that. But the slightly out of reach one, the ones that, I mean, we talked about it when I did a marathon swim of 37K with friends, and we got interviewed in the local papers and everyone was like, why would you do this? Like, it is very exciting to hop into that water and not know if you are going to get out at the finish line. Yeah.
And without help.
Of the three of us that started, two finished, and then a third one had to pull out. And like that made it exciting because it was literally like, can I do this? Not, I know I can do this, give or take 5 minutes. It's, can I do this? And that's fun. That's where you feel like you're growing. Have you learned to get better at failure? This is something that I'll share this openly. Moving to a new place where I don't have a network of really close friends close by. I don't have as many people to talk through tough times or good times with. So we've actually found a really good counselor here, and I go and it's just like a time to chat. No shame in it. It's just like, hey, I just need to talk every few weeks. And she pointed out to me, she's like, you're not very good at failure, are you? I'm like, no, I haven't. She said, when have you failed? And I'm like,
we don't do that.
Not really ever. And she went, that's not a good thing. Because all of a sudden now I have this huge fear of our business failing or our app failing because I've never experienced it before. So what's your, what have you learned about it?
I would definitely say I'm very similar to you in the fact I don't think I've ever, obviously I've not achieved things, but there's always been some sort of backup, or I wouldn't really say I've ever failed. And that's because I always give myself a safety net. That's not because I'm amazing at everything. But I think heading towards like my next goal, I'm more prepared. I think I'm trying to be more prepared to go for a goal that I maybe can't achieve. So maybe that's a question that I'll be able to answer in October. But right now, I don't know if I'm any better. I think I'd like to think I am, but until I've done it or gone for something, I don't think I can say that. So it's constant learning, right? It never ends. You're always learning with these long distance challenges that you have. So
Keep me
it
posted
changes
on
day
that,
to day.
because if you have any insights, I need them. I have a
I
piece of
will.
paper that she wrote down that was something like failure equals growth. I'm like, that sounds really
Yeah.
nice. Wow.
It does. I think it's hard for people who don't deal with it well to just, because it seems as though you've got to kind of force yourself to fail, which I don't think is positive either. But maybe just setting a goal. Well, this is how it looks for me: is that setting a goal that I might fail at, rather than setting a goal I know I'm going to fail at, because that's kind of counterproductive, right? So it's there's a fine balance between knowing you're going to fail and
Yeah,
maybe
I
you
think
might
the
fail.
knowing you're going to fail is just the same as something that's already within your reach, because you almost have a certain outcome.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
not growing you're not growing by
Yeah.
failure if you
Absolutely.
know you're going to fail, because you already know the outcome. I think that that's something that you've
For
really
sure.
legitimately tried for but failed for is important. I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of weeks since she mentioned it to me. I'm like, wow, that does make sense. Now, I don't want to fail with the business, but it sure would have been good over the course of my life to look back and go, hey, I really failed at that, but something good came out of it. And I can
Mm.
really only point to one time as an investment advisor I sucked at it, and it led me to create the YouTube channel that turned into our business. But she pointed out, like, you've never had a catastrophic failure that you had to really pick yourself
Yeah.
up and dust
Yeah.
yourself off from. And I went, no, I haven't. So now I'm afraid of that because I've never experienced it. We need to take a quick second to thank a sponsor. Athletic Greens is a product that I use literally every single day. I like Athletic Greens as a replacement for a traditional multivitamin. Athletic Greens is made with whole foods. It contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And because it is made from whole foods and you can mix it up as a greens powder in a shake or whatever you want, it's much easier for your body to actually absorb. If you go to athleticgreens.com/Taren, you will get a free year's supply of vitamin D with your first purchase and 5 free travel packages. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Taren to get yourself some Athletic Greens. Everyone that I know that's tried it has absolutely loved it, so you will too. Give it a shot.
Like it's good and it's bad, right? Because you've obviously got lessons you've learned, but then someone who has had that catastrophe has also got a lot you could learn from them. So there's like that midpoint where everyone wants to be, but we always tend to be further on one side of the
Yeah.
over the line.
In the last few years, what are some of the lessons you've learned about yourself that you might look at a new runner and somebody who's thinking about getting into running the same way you were thinking about it? But we all say things to ourselves that are really lies about why we can't do things, why we can't get our goals. What have you learned about achieving your goals that we tell ourselves lies about that prevent us from doing it?
I think what I've learned is that I would say this for me is that you've got to want it for yourself. There are people that are motivated by other factors, maybe coming third, coming second, coming in a certain time. But especially if you're new to something that you're not going to be able to excel at straight away, I think really focusing on the why, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, why do you want to go out there and do a triathlon or swim 1,000 meters or whatever your goal is when you first start? Like, what is the why? And I think when you find the why, the doubts are still there, but you can always bring it back to why you're doing it. Whereas if you're just out there doing it and you kind of lose the why, the
So what
doubts
were the
take
doubts that
over.
you've had or impediments that you had as you were getting into the sport?
um, Not being worthy for a start. Like you look at people when you first start that look really fit or look confident even. It's not always about how they physically look, but just going to the start of a race and seeing these people that are
Yeah.
well-trained marathoners, half marathoners, and just being like, I'm not sure if I should be here. That was something I struggled with at first. And then the self-doubt of just, as we were talking about before, like, can I do this? And that, for me, the first marathon that I did and then the first running marathon I did, it wasn't about a time. There was no time there. It was just like, can I actually complete this distance? And so I just think when you're doubting if you even can, it's not the most positive mindset to be in. It can be a good motivator for some people, but self-doubt is not helpful, which is why I really honed in on the quote, never doubt what you're made of. That helped me through my first marathon, because that was my main. It wasn't anyone else telling me I couldn't do it. I had people saying, you're going to be fine, you're going to do good, look at all the training you've put in. But I was
Can you talk
my own
more
worst
about
enemy.
not feeling like you belong? Because you had a pair of shoes and a bib just like everyone else.
Yeah,
But why? I get what you're talking about, but I'm
I
just wondering
did.
where that comes from, because we all feel that at our first few races.
Yeah, I think when you, I mean, if you look at any sort of, I was going to say social media, but any sort of media, whether that's magazines, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, whatever, people that have done things for it's not always such a long time, but even someone who's done one race, they've just had the experience, they're not new, they know what to expect. And when you turn up, and a lot of the time it's people you don't know, but then there'll be, I don't know, groups of, like, a running group that all run the same race together, so everyone stood around chatting. And I think you just feel inferior. And I don't think it comes down to a lack of self-confidence or anything to do with you. I think it's just those environments, that it's just a new environment, right? And any new environment can be challenging. And when you've put in so much work and you build up this confidence, and maybe you're running with a group or you're running by yourself, or whatever sport it is you're taking part in, and then to build these walls up around yourself in a comfort zone, that you learn to be in a comfort zone, but then you go to race day, and even though all you're doing is, like you said, you've got your shoes, you've got your bibs, you're going to run distances you've hopefully run before, you're actually in an unfamiliar environment. So I think it's just those first couple of times, maybe just feeling that you don't
I remember
belong there.
the the exact moment that I felt that way. I was standing at the start of, I think it was my second season of triathlon, or maybe it was my first. And the official said something like, everyone knows the race course, as the main Olympic starters are in the water. And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And this one guy points to the shore, like points backwards, and like, ha ha ha, everyone laughs. And I could just tell that he had this aura of like, that guy is the top dog around here. And I looked at it, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so confident. It's 30 seconds before the start of the race. I'm 30 minutes before the start of my race. I'm peeing myself, and he's making jokes.
Yeah.
And then he became a training partner, and like I traveled with him. He was a coach of mine, and he had just done it more. It wasn't a special.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't even really a special thing. It was just, it's a race that he's going to do. He just had to go through those first couple of years of not being confident, not being the person that felt like he fit in. And then all of a sudden he became the top dog, and like helped that he was really fast. But he wasn't that confident just because he was so fast, because there were 30 other people that were confident and feeling the same way. So, yeah.
And I think those people that are confident, or whatever we want to call it, and don't feel that they don't belong, they have been through that process as well. Everyone's had their first race, everyone's had disappointment. So if you do enough races,
Yeah.
you'll then be that person that people look at and think, oh my gosh, they're so confident.
Yeah,
And you might not
So
be.
I started with that experience, and then fast forward to the second last race that I've done, which is now like almost 3 years ago, almost to the day. and it was Challenge Roth, my first Ironman. Even though it was my first Ironman and I was nervous coming into it, I almost missed my start time because I was chatting away with friends in transition, and I heard 60 seconds till the 30 to 39 wave. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta go. And like, yeah, ran up
time
and I
to
would go
switch
from
on.
laughing to, all right, race time right away, because I wasn't peeing myself nervous. You just have to go through all of
Yeah.
those experiences. What else have you done that has helped you get over doubts in the past that you're taking into this goal that you have now to get to Boston?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, as strange as it sounds, is actually my social media. Because when I started my Instagram, the reason I started it was actually more so to absorb, because I'm very visual. So I wanted to absorb a lot of running stuff. And on my personal Instagram account, I kind of started sharing things about running, and obviously friends that didn't know me as a runner, which I wouldn't say I was at the time, kind of became a bit disconnected. So I started this new Instagram just to kind of follow running posts, and then seeing what other people were doing and starting to share my journey, because it wasn't my achievements that I was sharing, it was my journey of like, oh, like I'm really nervous. I've not done this before. And I think once I started to share that and just be open that I was scared and I was nervous and I didn't know if I was going to hit my goals, that's another thing that really helped me kind of grow my confidence, because I wasn't trying to make out that I was a confident person or that I knew I was going to hit my goals. And people got on board with that and people shared their experiences, which helped me be where I am today. Because for me, it's not been a journey that I've done by myself. I've had a lot of support from people that I don't even know or have never met in person. So that's where that all started for me, taking that step to be brave enough to just share my training and my doubts and everything that was going on
It's super
3 years
motivating.
ago now.
I,
So
I have you done a race yet since you've had a bigger following? Oh,
no, so yeah, so I ran LA obviously in 2020. My account was nothing like it is now. And don't get me wrong, I've had amazing support throughout, whether I've had 100 followers or 10K like I've got now. But I think there's so much excitement about Chicago coming up, not just because my platform's grown, but because there's more people that I know. There's more people that have waited so long to just race again because of the pandemic. And I mean, some of us for Chicago have deferred from 2020. So it's been like 2 years in the making. There's all this excitement. It's confidence has grown in ourselves because we've had 2 years extra to train for it. And I just think that is going to be something special, whether I hit my goals or not. I think it's going to be something very
I think
special
you're
when
very
I run
correct. You'll be
Chicago.
surprised at how you can hear the voices of people that you know are out there watching your split times and everything. Like it's it's almost like you have a cheering squad that's right next to you the entire time, even though you might not know all of the names or more than like a handful of the names. You know that there are people out there rooting for you, and that brought me so much
Yeah,
motivation in the depths of despair in some races, where I remember one where I was like, just don't walk. Whatever you do, don't walk. And it was that not walking that I think
yeah,
qualified me for my
wicked.
first half Ironman World Championships. Had I walked, wouldn't have been able to do it. And I owe it entirely to knowing that all those people
Exactly.
were out there rooting for me. And yeah, you're going to like it. It's
It's
really cool.
amazing.
Um, what makes you the
Looking
happiest
forward to it.
with racing, with endurance sports as a whole, the community, what we get out of this sport?
Yeah, I really like to make a difference to two or four other people. So I really like to, maybe I don't know if someone gains benefit from what I've done, or maybe I've helped someone to understand something. Whatever that, even like down to the content that I make that just makes people laugh, gives them a break from the training. I think just yeah, giving something back to people really makes me happy, because you can go out and do all the training in the world, and for some people it's enough to just have the recognition from people. But and I've said this to you like off this conversation, but I think my platform, if I'm lucky enough to have a platform that's grown, I actually want to use it to give back. I don't just want to use it to have a platform for the sake of having people follow me, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people get their motivation from being on a platform and just putting content out about themselves. But I really am happiest when I can see people gaining something from
That's
what I'm
great.
saying or doing.
Yeah, I think there's always that thing where when people feel aimless and they start focusing on others as opposed to themselves, that instantly that fulfillment comes.
Yeah.
And I've always had that, maybe not always, but over the last 3-4 years, as I've really wondered, like, hey, what is this platform? What is this big following? What does it mean? Because I'm not going to be a YouTuber for forever. Sorry, everyone, but like, it's just not going to happen. So what does it mean? And whenever it's got hard, I just kind of go back to like, do something good for the endurance world. And the big thing that we want to have right now is make it easier for people to follow and find role models so they can get the motivation to get into the sport, and then give them a app that, I mean, this is business oriented, but it's really what we're trying to do is like make it easy for people to have good training that they can just go, okay, I know what to do every day that is going to get me to a race that I'm not sure if I can do. And it's not going to cost them $200 a month or $5,000 a year. And that hopefully eliminates one big barrier, and that's what we can contribute.
Absolutely. And I've said this before as well. I think you can't solve all of the issues and barriers that are out there, but if everyone does a little bit and uses the privileges that they have sparingly, we can all do little bits and make things more accessible. We're not going for perfection, but if everyone can just do a little bit and whatever they can, it makes the world of endurance sports so much better.
This is like one of my favorite questions to ask, so we'll end on it. If you are Czar of Achievement, where you can get the entire world to think differently or act differently or have a different habit or routine or whatever it might be, and it's going to make it easier for them to achieve their goals, what would you change?
I think I'd definitely go back to what I said around looking at your own why and your own, basically recognizing your own achievements, let's put it that way. So whether that's first place on a podium, whether that's last finisher in a marathon, whether it's DNF in a marathon, the fact that you have got out there and attempted something new, it doesn't even have to be something you didn't think you could do, but attempted something new, you should be able to recognize yourself that is an achievement. Achievement doesn't always mean you're even recognized for it by other people, but achieving, say a day maybe you feel really down or you feel really tired and you just don't think you can get a workout done, but you actually get out the door and get 2 miles done. Recognize that as an achievement in yourself. Obviously we all love recognition and it's really good to be recognized by outside factors, but really recognize yourself and make sure that you know your own self-worth, because once you know that, you're able to give more, which means you'll receive more. So I think that's what I would change for people who think recognition has to start externally. I think it can.
Jillian Roberts, who is another one of our motivators. I'm not sure if you've met her because she's just coming out of surgery. But yes, she had briefly, a really good comment a couple days ago when we were on a podcast with her. She said, whatever your step one is, that's your step one. Just focus on your step one. And it doesn't matter if your step one is walk around the block 500 meters compared to Ryan Hall or Iliad Kipchoge or whoever it might be. Their step one is, all right, well, I've got to get up to 150 miles of training this week. Like, we're all starting wherever our step one is, and that's a success. And we have to just focus on being a better version of ourselves, not being a better version of ourselves in comparison to the person next to us.
Absolutely. And we're not all going to get world recognition or even like state recognition, and that's okay. You don't have to be on these huge stages to feel the same feelings.
I remember that I
feel.
felt just as good finishing my first try that was 43 minutes long as I did finishing the Ironman. Tears coming down my face, like going into the porta potty after.
Oh, absolutely.
I just need a minute.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it should be. Like, I still say when I finished that first marathon, not the running one, 6 hours, I felt like a superhero. And to most people, they'd be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, you finished. But to me, that was like Olympic gold.
That's awesome. All right. Where should people find you and cheer you on?
Yeah, sure. Runderestimated on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, which are my main social media platforms. Yeah, I do have a blog as well, but I think on most of those platforms, there's links in the link tree where you can find anything else I've been a part of.
Awesome. Thanks, Milo. You're putting out great vibes in the world, so keep doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching, motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods that is as good as a one-on-one coach but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our mōTTIV training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. There's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you'd rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's mōTTIV Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, motivators.